Good morning, everyone. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to speak with you today, for those of you in the room and those of you joining us on the web. I was asked to explore three topics for this session, and I'm doing this from the perspective of an adjudicator in environmental and land use matters at the provincial level. These are covered out in the slides set out in your materials, and since I submitted the slides, I was asked to cover one more topic, so we've added a few slides to what you'll see on the screen as compared to what you have in the binder towards the end. These are at no extra charge, by the way. As Freya mentioned, I'm an active member of several tribunals, so I can't get into a detailed critique of the various legislative models I will speak to. In terms of your expectations, you can expect from me a more descriptive talk, and I'm sure that will change as we move to the left, literally, along the table. So usually someone asks permission to speak freely. I'll have to ask for your permission to not speak freely. So a more descriptive talk is in order for you. The first topic that I will cover is the final decision makers, and I'll be looking at that from the perspective of three of the major Canadian environmental tribunals, those being the Ontario Environmental Review Tribunal that I oversee, the Alberta Environmental Appeals Board, and the British Columbia Environmental Appeal Board. Now, this discussion stems from a volume I co-authored on that subject, and it was an interesting endeavor to look at how similar fields of regulation are dealt with by different provinces. And there's quite a lot of similarities across these three major full-time environmental boards in Canada. Second, I'll examine the issue of strict hearing time limits at some of these tribunals and others. And I'll also look at the issue of standing under statutes applicable to those same environmental tribunals. And then the bonus feature is I'll touch briefly on merit-based appointments to tribunals with a couple of relatively recent initiatives in British Columbia and Ontario. So the examples I'm using largely come from the environmental context, but they're best viewed as case studies within the overall admin law context. For example, questions of who makes the final call, how long you have to hold a hearing, who has standing to participate. They all came to the fore in recent media stories about the federal environmental and energy processes, and that's why I was asked to come here and speak to these issues from the environmental perspective. But they really are just illustrative of issues that can come up in a wide range of fields, some of which Freya just mentioned. So let's move right into final decision makers. We had I would say a less print-worthy omnibus bill a few years ago in Ontario. Didn't quite get the attention of recent ones here at the federal level. But it was interesting because it did come up, one of the issues that came up here federally came up in the Ontario one a few years ago, except for it went in a different direction. These statutes that our tribunals oversee used to have applications and appeals to the provincial cabinet from our decisions. And in that omnibus bill a few years ago in 2009, those cabinet oversight provisions were removed. And that was an interesting development. So in those cases from the 1970s until now, or until 2009, our tribunal decisions in these areas, under these three particular statutes out of dozens, these ones had the final decision maker role changed such that the tribunal is a decision maker unless, of course, something happens on judicial review. Now let's look at some of the other models. I don't have to go through all of this on the slide, but just to show you that even if within one tribunal, the Environmental Review Tribunal that hears proceedings under about 12 or 13 statutes, we have statutes on the left where the ERT issues a decision and there's no appeal whatsoever. We have ones in the middle where the ERT issues a decision and there can be an appeal to the divisional court on legal questions or to the minister on questions other than legal questions. And then we have a couple here where there's just an appeal on legal questions.